Jonathan Mirren. I run PT Theater Company, but I'm also been collaborating with Scott McPherson at Holyoke Media, and also Jennifer Webster at Big Brothers Big Sisters to create this thing called Valley Arts Mentors. And we had a whole big plan and strategy, some of which is still on the website before COVID, and we've been adapting since then. But really the gist is to support arts mentorship and teaching artists and teaching arts organizations in the Valley, and also be a kind of a connector in that way. And the first kind of program we got off the ground was this mentorship program where we're pairing early career artists with more experienced artists. And we have quite a lot of visual artists in the first kind of cohort. It's going on a rolling basis. And so anyone who's interested in that should look on the webpage that says mentorship, and or get in touch with us, and we're happy to answer any questions. But we also, just because we wanted to do more than that, and given COVID and everything, we thought to start a webinar series that would address some of the issues that we see coming up in the mentorship program, and also some other issues that we wanted to, that we thought would be worth excavating for the arts community in the Valley. So, so I'm really excited to have Hope Ross Gibaldi here. She is with an organization called Valley Venture Mentors, as opposed to Valley Arts Mentors, which is who we are. Valley Venture Mentors, I actually went through their program a few years ago, just trying to become better at kind of administering and entrepreneurial stuff around our theater company. And I thought it's a great organization, and Hope is the community engagement manager there. She's the co-founder and CEO of Learn in Motion, a youth recreational program that offers movement, sports, and play-based enrichment programs for preschoolers and elementary school students. The company takes a unique approach to education, social emotional development, and behavioral management. She's also an alumna of the Holyoke-based Spark Accelerator program, which is, from what I understand, a kind of also a program that's designed to help entrepreneurs. And by entrepreneurs, we also just mean people who are trying to run a business or start a business, and not, of course, not just limited to the arts, but any kind of business. And she's facilitated 3 cohorts before the Spark program, transitioned to the E for All network. She remains involved in the program as a mentor and ecosystem and advisory board member. She's passionate about the transformative impact that entrepreneurship and education can have for individuals and communities, and holds bachelor's degrees in Spanish and anthropology from Drew University. So we've been having a great time talking with Hope about her work and how, her work. She's also just really excited to kind of adapt some of what she does every day around helping entrepreneurs and sort of giving it a specific artist-based spin. And she's really well-versed in a lot of these issues, which I guess you could call non-arts issues, but which we all, at least I, struggle with. So I'm really looking forward to tonight. And before I forget, we're also grateful to the Mass Cultural Council, there are a variety of local cultural councils who are supporting this webinar series, and the Community Foundation of Western Mass, with funding from the Barr Foundation, is the main reason why this VAM organization exists at all today. So without further ado, Hope, teach us stuff.
Hi, everybody. I'm Hope Ross Gibaldi. Thank you, Jonathan, for the great introduction, and thank you all for having me. Really excited to be here with you all. Thanks for taking some time out of your evening on this beautiful day to come and learn about the intersection between creativity and entrepreneurship. I do have a slide deck that I'm going to share. This is relatively informal, so please, if you have thoughts, questions, feel free to raise your hand, or you can come off mute throughout the presentation. All right, 1 second. Can you see my screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, from passion to business. Again, thank you so much to VAM for kind of joining joining forces with Valley Venture Mentors and to the Mass Cultural Council and the Community Foundation for making this all possible. I'm really excited to kind of go over a lot of the, what I would consider to be common themes that many creative entrepreneurs face, not just creative entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs in a variety of different industries. This is by no means going to be everything that you would need to know about running a business based off of your artistic endeavors, but it's certainly a good start to start thinking about a lot of those things. I am, like Jonathan said, CEO and co-founder of Learn in Motion and the Community Engagement Manager of Valley Venture Mentors in Springfield. I'm also a volunteer with E4All, Entrepreneurship for All. I'm a mentor, volunteer with SCORE, which is another organization that provides entrepreneurial mentorship in the Valley, as well as WIT, Women Innovators Trailblazers, which is another mentorship organization for women. So just kind of certain things that we wanted to go over today. I wanted to just have some time to introduce each other and get to know one another. And then we'll talk a little bit about getting clear on what we want, and then also developing a strategy to take our passion from passion to business. We had a poll, I guess. Scott, can we launch that poll? I think I should come. Yeah, I can launch the poll. I'm gonna launch the poll.
Great.
All right, I launched it.
Yep.
Can you see the poll? Okay, wonderful. There's
Yes.
just 2 quick questions in the poll.
All right, so we should do the poll now.
Yes, if you see the poll, you just answer those questions.
Great. And I'll just, I forgot to mention, Hope, I'll just chime in here that we are recording this so that artists afterwards can benefit from it who weren't able to make it tonight.
I have a question.
Yes.
Where it says, are you monetizing your art? Does that mean, do we want to monetize our art, or are we already making money?
That's a good question. I think that question is really to gauge where you're at. So are you currently monetizing it? If you're here, I'm going to assume that you would like to maybe monetize it a little bit, right? Even if you're not currently monetizing it. And so if you're not currently making any money on your art, that's totally fine. Then I would just say no. And then that's kind of what a lot of this workshop will cover, is pushing in towards that, figuring out what are the steps to be able to take it from something that we do and we enjoy doing to turning it more towards a business and being able to monetize it. All right, so we have some painting, some people are monetizing and some not, and which is totally fine. For the others, can I just have you maybe hop on off mute and tell us what counts as other?
I put other. I'm actually a graphic designer, so digital arts, I guess. But my interest lies in like brand identity and brand design.
Awesome, very important.
I do mixed media, paper crafting, found objects, some acrylics, but more abstract than fine art. Or
Beautiful. All right. Anybody else want to share?
You want us to share what we do?
Yeah, I would love that.
Well, so I'm a mixed media artist as well, and fabric and quilting and that kind of thing. I currently run an art school it was an in-person art school. Now it's on Zoom. And we'll be going back in person. So I signed up for this because I thought, well, I got completely wiped out and have had to build myself up again. And so I thought returning to the basics, since I was forced into that position over the past year, would be a good exercise. So here I am.
Thank you for sharing that. Good context. This year has been totally crazy. And so I applaud you for being here, showing up, and it's always good to go back to the basics. Can never hurt. Yeah, that leads us into my next slide was just going to be kind of introductions anyway. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and kind of your goals and what brought you here and what you're hoping to do with kind of what brought you here and primarily like what your goal is for your business or for your art. Buddy.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm a painter and illustrator, and I teach non-credit art classes at HCC. And I'm here because anytime you hear a business person talking about business, it's really great and you make a lot. So I'm transitioning between having a part-time job to doing art full-time. And while I make a decent amount of money parts of the time, I would like to get the revenue flow a little bit more, not when it rains, it pours, and then there's droughts. So I'd like it to be a little bit more consistent, and hearing from a business person always helps. The planning.
Excellent. Thank you, Melissa. It's so important. I'm definitely going to talk about that.
Since I started talking originally, my name is Natalie. I'm a graphic designer by freelance and by degree, but I work full-time retail because unfortunately I've had my degree for about 3 years, but I never really kicked off my freelance very well. Graphic design is art in the digital sense. So, I figured I saw the opportunity to kind of hear what other people had to say, even if it was about, more tangible art. But for the most part, yeah, it's just I've never really got a grasp of, what I could be doing better, what I should be doing better, how to actually monetize myself. And yeah, just to see what everybody else kind of does.
Thanks, Natalie.
I'm Gayla again. I am a self-taught artist and actually just recently started calling myself an artist. I am an art teacher by accident, actually. I have a special needs child and I was looking for art classes online on an educational platform called OutSchool back in December of last year. And I couldn't find what I wanted for her. There was nobody on that platform teaching specifically to kids with special needs. So I thought I could do that. And I started doing it. And I've just been teaching a class a month. It's all my schedule will afford at this point. But I'd like to ramp that up and eventually move off of that platform and do something on my own.
Excellent. Thank you.
I guess I'm the only one left. No. My name is Sherry, and I am recently retired from working in early childhood due to the pandemic and as well as health issues. And so I do have a degree in painting from decades and decades ago, but, had a family and life and, worked full time all these years. And so now I find that I am in a place where I have time and space to make art again, but I also need to make money. So I don't know how to balance that.
You're in the right place. Thank you for coming. And then Elaine, I think kind of when you introduced yourself a little bit, you had touched on these topics, but is there anything else that you want to add?
No, I'd like to hear what you have to say. I'm very interested in all these organizations that you're a part of. It's been such a ride this year to have my income, because I've been self-supporting as an artist for 25 years, and then to have it just completely to go to zero and start again. And now, Gayla, you mentioned wanting a more consistent income stream and an odd, I guess, byproduct of the pandemic is that by taking my work from all in person to online, I now have a more consistent income stream, which is interesting. So,
It is interesting.
yeah.
This is something, with my business Learn in Motion, and just kind of a little bit of backstory about me that I think is helpful. I came into the whole entrepreneurial ecosystem, which is this network of organizations around that exist to help people who are starting their businesses. And my husband and I started Learn in Motion a few years back. He was a full-time preschool teacher and a lifelong athlete, and we kind of merged those and found an opportunity. And overnight we're like, oh God, we need insurance, we need this, we need all of these things, that you don't realize that you need until you need them. And so we've been growing and scaling our business. And I went through the Spark Accelerator program, which was my introduction to this whole world of this network of organizations like BBM that help to support business owners. And, when I say business owner, like Jonathan had mentioned, this is everybody from, I have this idea, I have this thing in the back of my mind, to every once in a while I sell a painting or I make something and I make a little bit of money. In my eyes, entrepreneurship is for everybody, whether it's a lot or a little, a side hustle, you want to make it your full-time hobby or your job, you want to grow it and scale it, and you want to hire people, or you want to sell your designs and you want to figure out how to do that. There's so many opportunities within entrepreneurship, and it's really just about plugging away at what are these different business concepts that we might not necessarily be as we're really passionate about what we're doing, and that's why we're in business, but we're not passionate about taxes and legal structures and, tracking our finances, right? But those are the things that are really critically important in order to make sure that we're running something that's successful and sustainable. So this workshop is really just designed to go over a lot of those different things that we want to be thinking about, whether we are deciding that we want to go full time and we want to be able to support ourselves, our family, hire people, or if we just want to make a little bit of extra money on the side, like this workshop is for you. So now I'm going to go back to my screen. And please, again, if you have any questions, feel free to just stop me, interrupt me. It's not that formal. Okay. We did this part. All right, so now getting clear. I want to try to see, is there a way? Because I can't see all of you, and all right, that's good. So the first step in my eyes along this process of trying to monetize our artistic endeavors is getting clear about what we want. This is like a critical first step for any entrepreneur, no matter what industry you're embarking on. Getting clear about where you want to go is of pivotal importance. That way you can kind of use that vision as your roadmap to really build your strategy and be able to be intentional with your actions on a day-to-day basis, on a month-to-month basis, to be able to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to be able to get you where you're trying to go. In thinking about getting clear when we're starting a business, especially with regards to our creative endeavors, is how do I want to spend my time? Like, how much free time do I actually have to be able to dedicate to this? Some people mention that they're working full-time, part-time, they're retired. We all have different amounts of time. At the same time, we all have the same amount of time in a day, right? So thinking about how much time do we actually have, factoring out, and I had a coach go through this exercise with me where we actually took the amount of hours in a week and we subtracted the amount of hours that we sleep, the amount of hours that we spend with, family and friends, the amount of hours that we spend eating, the amount of hours we spend working at our full-time job, right? Subtracting everything that you do on a day-to-day basis to figure out how much time do I actually have to be able to dedicate to this endeavor. We think that maybe we don't have enough time, but if we really analyze our time and how we spend our time, often I have found that many people, right, are spending some time, maybe wasting some time. The time slips away. We don't even realize it. So getting really clear on how am I spending my time and how much time do I have available to be able to dedicate to this is a really good first step to take, because it allows me to then say, okay, I only have 5 hours a week to be able to dedicate to this, or I have 20 hours a week to be able to dedicate to this. That's going to be able, that makes a big difference. And if I want to really get this thing off the ground and I want to be able to build it to a place where it's making me enough income to support me, or it's something that eventually will get me to a place where I could grow it and scale it and hire other people, then it's gonna take some time, and it's gonna take some focus and some effort, right? And so making sure that we're intentional with the time that we do have is a really, really critical first step. And I think the first part of that is getting aware, non-judgmentally, non-critically, about how do I spend my time and how much free time do I have. And then thinking too, as far as what do I want, how do I want to fit this into a balanced life? I'm really, really passionate about making sure that we as entrepreneurs don't just speak about the technical things like cash flow and legal considerations and marketing, because in my eyes, one of the most critically important things is ourselves and making sure that we're building a life that we actually enjoy. For me, entrepreneurship is a beautiful way to be able to spend time doing things that you like, monetizing your skills, your hobbies, your interests, your passions, and being able to then build a life that you love, that you're excited about, that you're, and we're not just clocking in and doing something that we don't like doing every day, right? So in order to be able to build this kind of life that I want to do, I want to be really clear on how do I want to spend my time. And thinking about this too, especially with artists, I come across this, if what you love is the creation of your art, then you're going to build a business that allows you to focus on creating your art. That might limit your scalability, right? And so in thinking about, if I want to build a business that's going to grow and scale, then I might have to focus more on my business than my art. That's okay. But when we think about where we want to go and where we want to take our business and where we want to take our venture, it's important to think about that early on. Because if you want to grow it and scale it, then you might spend more time focusing on your business itself than actually creating your art. If you want to grow and scale and hire employees, for example, and have a graphic design firm, you might not do a whole lot of graphic design. And if what you love to do is graphic design, then that's going to make it so that you're not necessarily doing what you want to do. There's no right or wrong answer here, right? But it is important, and this is different for each person individually. How do I want to spend my time? I think it's important that we figure that out, and then we build a business around that. So we're building a business that works for us. We're building lives that work for us. Also thinking kind of about my financial goals. How much would I like to be bringing in? How much would I like to be making? How much do I have to bring in and make, right? Because a lot of in the early startup stage, when we're starting a business, no matter what industry you're in, if you're trying to get it off the ground, sometimes it takes a little while before it will sustain you financially, right? So sometimes very passionate but slightly misguided entrepreneurs say, like, I've got this idea and I'm going to quit my job. And it's like, okay, hold on, pump the brakes a little bit, right? You need to be able to build it enough to be able to justify leaving that part-time or that full-time income, And so getting clear on how much do I actually need to get by? Can I scrape by for a little bit? And what would I like to do? So what is like my minimum here that I need to make? And like, what would I, not talking about minimum, thinking about that abundant lifestyle. Like, what do I want to bring into my life? How much money would I like to bring in here? And then being able to then set my action to be able to match that. And how much do I want to make with my artistic endeavors? So, if I want to leave my full-time job and I want to support myself 100% with my art, How much am I going to need to bring in on a monthly basis in order to be able to do that? Right. And these are not questions that you need to answer right away. Like, these are not questions that I feel like you just say and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you know. So I don't want to stress anybody out. This is a no stress thing. I'm here 100% to support you, and I'd be happy to set up a follow-up call, you know, with all of you to talk about these things and how they apply to your own lives as well. Do we have any questions so far? No? All right. So I talked a little bit about this time study, right? I should have just gone to my slide, but thinking about this, the time that you have in the day, right? Where are you spending your time? Trying to break it down. You don't have to necessarily do, you know, a strict time study like this, but if you're looking to dedicate more time to your business and your art, figure out where might you have some wiggle room. You know, how many hours are you spending on Netflix, or, you know, I don't know, this is just myself. So I might have to like watch one less thing to be able to have another hour. I gain an hour back, right? So, you know, it's just about weighing the priorities and making sure that I'm carving out the time. Because the thing about it is it won't get off the ground unless we are actively making time and space for it. And that goes about with anything in our lives, whether it's self-care, right? Like I have to schedule my self-care because I have to make sure that I hold myself accountable to putting that time aside for myself, time to just create for fun. And they're, you know, with nothing else in mind, right? So getting clear on our time is critical. Okay. Where do I want to take this? You know, we were kind of talking a little bit about this earlier too, but, you know, do I want this to be something that I do on the side? It's a side hustle. I want to keep my full-time job. Like, I love my full-time job. I'd like to maybe make my full-time job a part-time job. You know, I want to make sure that I'd like to cover all of my expenses, right? I don't want to have a full-time job anymore. Or, you know, Sherry, you mentioned you're retired. Like, how much am I trying to bring in, right? And to figure out, okay, like where would I like to go with this eventually? You know, do you want to grow it and scale it and hire employees? Or do you want to manufacture your creations or sell your designs somewhere, right? And so just getting clear on, you know, and really reflecting what type of business am I trying to build here, helps us to build a strategy and a roadmap to be able to get there. And what do I need in order to be able to get there? Like, do I need more equipment? Do I need materials, different materials or supplies, more materials and supplies? What type of space, like physical space, might I need to be able to do that? Is there technology that I need that I don't have in order to be able to do that? Or a contractor of some kind that might be able to help me? Like, if I want to create a digital course on my specific area of interest, do I have everything at my disposal already to do that? If not, it might require an upfront investment, you know, and which is not a bad thing, investing in your business, buying certain type of technology or equipment that would allow you to grow and scale. But just getting clear on what do I need in order to get where I'm trying to go. Okay. Anybody have questions? Oh no. Not yet. Okay. So I want this workshop to also make some space and time to like digest and reflect on the information that we're getting and think about how it applies to us as individuals. We're a small enough group that I think it makes sense maybe to just take some time and reflect a little bit on the information that we just went over, as far as where am I trying to go? What do I want? Where do I want to take this? And what do I need in order to get there? I'll put them up here again, just so you can see them. And let me see, it's 6:33. So let's take 5 minutes. I'll check back in 5 minutes. You can, you know, feel free to write, just sit in quiet reflection if you want, type it up, whatever you think is useful for you. But think about kind of what is your ultimate vision for what you'd like to do, and what are the things that you might need to line up in order to get there. I'm right here if you have any questions.
Can you put the second slide up? Not the time management. I think it was the previous one to this one, which sort of was just a different format. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Teresa. Welcome. We were just taking a couple minutes to kind of reflect. I'm going to put back another screen. We just went over some things about getting clear on where you're looking to take your artistic endeavors as far as fleshing them out into a bit of a business. I'll put the other slide up that has some more questions, or just taking, I think, 2 minutes or so more for reflection. We'll wrap up in another minute. All right. Would anybody like to share? Do they have any thoughts or reflections they'd like to share with the group? No worries. If not, we can just move forward.
I'll go.
Go for it.
Okay. I said that, well, my want and what I want and where I want to take this sort of merged. So I want to do online art classes for kids with special needs. And eventually I'd like to have a global audience. I'm, toying and thinking about, is that a Facebook Live situation? Is that a Zoom situation? Clearly, they both each have their advantages and disadvantages. I see, I'd like to do it as one-time events right now, but with the down the road picture of it being a membership. So that's sort of where my head is headed. And I need to do a lot of work. I need to build, I don't have, a Facebook page for this or an Instagram page. So I need to build a following and put up content. Less is more. I definitely don't, I'm not a huge fan of social media. So I want to make sure I don't get like sucked in and consumed by it. And I really have a nice balance with it. And I need to get a better understanding of how to use the technology that I do have to create these, pages on Facebook, Instagram. And I kind of need to get clear on what I want those pages to convey. So that's my picture.
Those are great reflections. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to share?
So, losing my notes here. So my brain kind of goes all over the place just because since I got my degree, I was kind of like, I have it, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it. So, and with the pandemic, I mean, when I graduated, the industry was already saturated. And being in Western Mass, finding work as a graphic designer is really, really hard. The market is saturated. There isn't much demand for it here. And a lot of the times you won't make it unless you're in a big city like Boston or Hartford or New York, which is why I've always really wanted to make it here because this is where I'm from. And I have a skill set that's beneficial. So when I think about what I want, I always think about in the long run. And I do want to have a design firm, but I'm more so interested in having or building like a design team. So linking up with other local digital or, more tangible artists in order to create and offer services to small businesses and other entrepreneurs. So like Gayla was talking about where she wants to set up an online presence, that's where me and my team would come in theory. Me and my imaginary team would come in and we'd offer our services to local entrepreneurs like that, where we can help you create like a digital logo that you would need. We would help you with video or website or whatever it might be. But yeah, in order to do that, I mean, it's a lot of work, and I need to be able to do that for myself. And I've been in a big place where I have a loss of focus and motivation due to the pandemic. I work a full-time job that's very physically demanding right now. I was in a switch of careers for a little bit, so it's been kind of an up and down roller coaster. But in the long run, I'd love to support myself. I'm tired of hunting for jobs where I have to mold my skill set to fit what a company might need. More so, I'd rather have a skill set that someone would seek out instead. And then, yeah, what I need is I need to focus. I need to learn to make time and maybe stop watching a few extra episodes of anything on Netflix and
Got you.
And connecting with other local artists. And I think that's why I decided to check out this webinar, because I don't. My social circle is very small, and with the pandemic, connecting with other people outside of the people I see on a daily basis is very limited. So, yeah, that's where I am.
Thank you, Natalie. Something that you said made me think too, I think as both creatives and entrepreneurs have a lot going on. Like there's so much intersection, I think, between the mind of a creative and the mind of an entrepreneur. So if you are a creative entrepreneur, then your mind is like going, you got a lot up there, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's about learning to harness that and bring it in and focus and rein it in and focus, especially with regards to getting that business off the ground. That's one thing that I've had to train myself to do. I'm by no means perfect at it. It's definitely a learning curve, but trying to make sure that I'm focused on the task at hand and take myself one step closer, because there's a million things to do. And so the key is not to get overwhelmed or stressed about the fact that there's a million things to do, and to learn to just say, I was speaking with an entrepreneur earlier who called it the Hydra, which is like, I don't know if you've seen like Hercules or the Greek beast, that when you cut off one head, like 3 more come out. And I felt that at a deep level. Like, entrepreneurship really is kind of like that in a way, but at the same time, it's about learning how to just take things step by step, and building a solid strategy helps you to build a solid foundation, and so that we can make sure that we're doing the best that we can with it and just chipping away.
Most definitely.
Does anybody else want to share on this? All right, we'll move on. Okay, so building your roadmap. So has anybody ever heard of a business model canvas? Okay, so when people, I'm assuming everybody's heard of like your traditional business plan. And like you would imagine somebody in like a boardroom presenting a 60-page document, that has everything about a business, right, that you would need to know. There are lots of ways in which I think the entrepreneurial support community has adapted to be a little less formal. And one way that they've done that is by developing, there are many different versions of this and many different people who have contributed to this area, but this is called a business model canvas. This in particular is called a lean canvas. So like, again, if you look at them online, there's a bunch of different versions, but it's basically more or less a 1-page graphic format that you can utilize to draw out your business plan, right? And so this lean canvas has a big focus on your customer. Who's your customer? What is the problem that they have, right, that you're trying to solve? Because all businesses are really in existence to solve a problem for their customer. And so in thinking about, this looks different for every business, as you can imagine, right? A small business, a startup who needs graphic design services is going to look very different than a parent of a special needs child who wants an art class for their child, right? Those are totally different customers, entirely different problems. There might be some intersection, but in order for us to be able to really build a solid strategy around our business, we want to get clear on who is our customer, right? Who is the person that's buying our product, whether that is our artwork, whether that's a class that we've created, whether it's a product or a service that we have. We are in business because there's a customer that is going to be solving, they have a problem or an issue that we're trying to solve. Now, some issues and problems, when you think about problems, are like shark bite problems, and other ones are kind of mosquito bite problems. Like, in the grand scheme of things, some people, the problem that they're trying to solve is like, I have a blank wall and I need something absolutely gorgeous to put up on it, right? And I'm not artistic and I can't do it myself. And like, that's a problem that they're trying to solve, And so when thinking about my business, and when everybody thinks about their own business, this kind of format can help to break down into different manageable pieces, okay, who am I serving here? And like, what is the issue that they have that I'm trying to solve? Alternatives here are, how is that person currently solving the problem already? Maybe they're not. If you're not in business, and say, for example, Gayla, with your business, you are your customer, which is why you created this product in the first place, because you were looking for something and it wasn't there, right? So how were you solving it before? Those are your alternatives. And there weren't very good alternatives, which is why you're doing what you're doing right now. and so getting really clear on the alternatives, whether it's something that really matches, like Natalie, you spoke about the saturated market. So your alternatives, right? How your other customer, they're either doing it themselves, they're either going to Fiverr, they're having a friend do it, right? They don't have a ton of extra money, expendable cash to be able to put. So you think about like, how are they doing it right now? And those are the alternatives. And then the key for when we're starting our business is getting really clear on who our customer is, what the problem is that they have, and how they're solving it currently, so that we can really clearly convey why our business uniquely stands to do it better, right? Whether we're doing it better or faster or cheaper, or there is a way in which we position our business to be better than the competition, right? I see the chat. 1 second. I'm sorry.
Hope, did you say this
Perfect. Yes.
is available? Like if we just do a quick Google search under business model canvas, we can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can if you all put your email in the chat, if you want, I can send you out like my slides, and I can send a couple of resources and other things as well. So if you're interested and you want to learn more about what other resources are around for supporting entrepreneurs here, like locally in the Valley, and then I can send a copy of this and a couple of other things. I'll just send a follow-up email.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah. So again, like I mentioned, there are lots of different versions of this, but it's not a static document. This is like a living, breathing, evolving thing. Your business model changes. I have, if you can see, so there's lots of different ways to do this. When I first went through the Spark Accelerator program, when I first filled out a business model canvas for my business Learn in Motion, it was on like a legal sized piece of paper. It was this exact same one from the co-starters curriculum, and we used Post-it notes, a different Post-it note for each customer segment. For example, you might have different customer segments. Your customer segment could be an individual person who's trying to start up a business. Your customer segment could be that you're selling a package, a different type of, you packaged your knowledge and information and you're selling it to other design firms, right? Or like Gayla, you could be selling specifically to families of children. You could be selling to schools or organizations that support special needs youth, right? They could be an entirely different customer segment for you. So when you have different customer segments, it allows you to really break down and then tailor what it is that you're offering to fit the unique needs of each customer segment. And so, a special needs school for youth has a different problem that they're trying to solve than a family of a special needs child who, and so it allows you to tailor then when you think about this section over here, how are you addressing them and how are you building your message to be able to convey and connect with your customer segment, to be able to explain the unique value and benefit and advantage of your business over the alternatives that you solve their problem, right? So when you think about it like that, it almost is like a whole little dance around this business model canvas. And it's very logical, the way that they draw it out. Obviously, there are boxes such as revenue, costs, startup needs. These are also really important boxes, that are not necessarily customer focused, but that are the logistical nuts and bolts of your business. So let me make sure I don't miss anything. Yes, absolutely. All the connections. I will reach out to all of you. Okay. And so we don't have to necessarily do this activity. Don't have to worry about getting a blank piece of paper. But when you think about your customer, you want to think about the demographics of your customer. And some of these are more applicable than others, right? But where do they tend to go in real life? Where do they live online? What are their goals, their values? Do they have expendable income? These are just like, the more that we can understand about the psychology of who it is that we're serving, the better we can serve them. And so getting really, and some people even take it really far they draw out a whole persona. I had somebody when I was in the first Spark Accelerator program, and they were talking about, I think it was Don Leaks, who was one of the original owners of the Lioness Group, which is an entrepreneurial magazine for women that went through the BBM Accelerator program. And she had names, like she had different personas, and she could explain, she could talk to them as if she breathed life into them like they were real people, and it helps us to connect with them. If I understand their problems, their pains, their goals, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish, how much money they have to be able to spend, how do they spend their time, what's important to them, the more that we understand about our customer, the better we can serve them, right? And so, for example, my business, when I first started Learn in Motion, this is not a creative, we can talk about that offline. There's creativity there, but it's not art. Well, I don't know. Anyway, but we were serving parents of 3 to 5 year olds, right? So that demographic is totally different than for our new program, where we're an everyday special at Morgan Elementary in the Flats. Our customer is the Holyoke Public School District, and it's budget crunched principals, right, that are having to choose between, I have to cut art or music. Like, I have to cut one or the other, and which one do I have? And say, well, no, if you have Learn in Motion as a special, we can integrate all of those things, so our customer is now a school district, it's an administrator, it's a principal, and they have different issues that they're trying to address. So it's just, something to think about how this applies to your business as well. Again, thinking about these different customer segments, you can break them down into demographics, psychographics, right? Like, what kinds of books do they read? The more you understand about them, the better you're able to connect with them. Some people, a lot of times, people have the unique advantage of being their target market. Gayla, like, again, your target market because you are your target market. It gives you an inside window into what your needs, your demographics, but also seek out other opinions as well, because we're not just the only one. Thinking about, for example, social media channels. When you think about who is the demographic using LinkedIn versus TikTok versus Instagram versus Facebook, right? If I have to choose, I'm going to be intentional about which social media channels I'm going to use, because it makes sense. I'm not necessarily going to advertise on LinkedIn if I'm trying to reach like a teeny bopper, I'm going to try TikTok, and so thinking about the strategy, the more you know about your customer, the better you can not only connect with them authentically by building relationships, but also by just being able to know where to find them, right? Think about the difference between a Starbucks customer and a Dunkin' Donuts customer. Like, they're kind of different. There might be some intersection, but what does a Starbucks customer tend to care about versus what does a Dunkin' Donuts customer tend to care about? So, it's just thinking about that helps. You might have different customer segments. You can kind of break them down a little bit. This is a document that I had found that was off of a SCORE, which is an mentorship organization for entrepreneurs. Just as reference of how somebody else kind of did this for their business. And again, all of these, I can share my slides with you all later, but this is a canvas that I found that is kind of specific to artists and has some more detailed questions. So I don't want to spend too much more time on this because I want to make sure I get through my other content, but feel free to take a look at this afterwards. And if you have questions, I'm happy to, like I said, schedule a follow-up call or, review your business model canvas if you'd like. Again, another thing that I found just on sample business model canvas for artists. There's a lot here, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. Does anybody have any questions before I kind of shift gears? All oh no, another one. I forgot. I found a bunch of them and I was like, you know what? I can't choose. I was like, I'll just put them all on there. All right. So again, just other ways. Like I said, there's a million different versions of this canvas. It's less important the one that you choose and more important that you just kind of pick one and get moving. You know what I mean? Because I feel like I'm the kind of person where I'm like, oh, which productivity app am I going to use? And then I lose all the time and I'm not actually doing what I need to do, being productive, because I'm so wrapped up in like the mechanism that I'm going to use. Like, no, just do the tasks. That's the most important part. All right. No more questions yet? Let's shift from business model canvas. All right. Okay, business nuts and bolts. So there's a variety of different things. And again, like you could take an entire accelerator program or MBA course really on this starting your business and all of the different things that you need to kind of cover. So I just wanted to pick a couple of main ones that are really some of the keys here. So we're all here because we want to try to monetize on some level our endeavors, right? And so whether it's a lot or a little, like we said, whether we want it to be our full-time job, we've got to talk about money. So it's just like plain and simple. It's uncomfortable for people. Sometimes people don't like talking about money. It's important to talk about it. Okay, so one of the critical things, most important things in the beginning, and that I think that is a common pitfall, especially among people who have been doing things kind of because they enjoy it, is there's no separation between what is my business finance and what is my personal finance, right? And that I was told early on, it's not that you necessarily have to have, you know, a legal business account for your business. That's an end goal. Ultimately, you can open up a second checking account under your personal account and just run all of your business transactions in and out through that account. The most important part is that you're tracking, so you have a really clear sense of what am I spending, what's going out, like what is coming into my business. And then that way I can print out the statement and I see everything that went out and I see everything that comes in, whether it's the little expenses or equipment, materials. It's really important. And when their business and the personal finances aren't separate in any way, it's easy to not realize how much money you're spending. Right? And if we don't know how much money we're spending, we definitely don't know if we're breaking even, and we really don't know if we're making any money. So it's important for us to try to separate the business and the personal finances. And thinking about too, like, how am I getting paid currently? You know, or how would I like to get paid if I'm not being paid currently? Do I accept cash? Do I prefer people write me a check? Am I using systems like Venmo or Cash App, you know, or PayPal? There are merchant systems. You can get a Square and you can run credit cards. Do I want to accept credit cards, right? So like thinking kind of about two things. What am I comfortable with? And then also like what is good for my customer, right? Because if I'm shipping, you know, if I'm shipping art across the country and I only accept cash, like that's not going to work, right? If I'm selling to somebody across the country, I'm going to need to find a way to get paid otherwise, you know. There are advantages, and as you're kind of beginning to separate the entity of you and the entity of your business, if you plan to separate them a little bit, then, you know, things like Cash App and Venmo can be good at originally in the beginning, but an established business, they don't really take Venmo, you know what I mean? And so like you want to start thinking about what's going to work right now, and then kind of think about that trajectory of my business and how would I like to be getting paid ultimately. You know, maybe I need an online system to be able to just accept payments and a checkout system, and people can buy my course right online. And, you know, and so thinking about what does that look like? Cash flow. It's critically important to think about our cash flow. Okay, so like when we think about our cash flow and we think about our expenses, sometimes there are a number of expenses that obviously jump to mind, and especially for creatives, right? If I need physical products to be able to make what I'm making, I know how much I spent because I had to buy it at, Michael's, or I had to buy my materials somewhere. And so I know at least those expenses. But am I also factoring in my overhead costs? Am I factoring in internet? Am I factoring in, all of those other little things? Like, am I factoring in the $15 a month that I pay GoDaddy for my website? Am I factoring in, so thinking about all of the costs. Like, you want to think about the ones that are obvious to you, but then really like dig deep into thinking about what else am I actually spending money on for the creation of my product or service that I might not be thinking about. Fixed and variable expenses, so the fixed things are, it's going to cost me $15 every single month for my GoDaddy. Like, that's not going to change, right? But a variable cost, if I get an order for 100 t-shirts, for example, and I design t-shirts, the product materials that I'm going to use, that cost is going to vary with the amount of materials that I need to be able to make that number. So that cost will vary. And again, thinking about, how does my business make money, right? How is the money coming in? And when you think about your cash flow, somebody had mentioned earlier kind of the ebbs and flows of cash flow, right? And how, like, sometimes when it rains, it pours. And then, it's kind of this like feast or famine sometimes with entrepreneurship, because at the beginning, there's really not necessarily a consistent, I'm getting X amount a month every single month, because if this month somebody buys X pieces of work from me and the next month I only sell one, that changes how much money is coming into my business. Creating things like membership Scala, that you have an opportunity to create more consistent revenue for your business. Elaine had mentioned being able to grow and scale by using online courses in a way, and that makes for some more consistent revenue. What are my revenue streams? And I think it's important to figure out how to diversify those revenue streams. So how can you maybe make money multiple different ways? How could you make money by being like a one-on-one coach, or being able to sell a class, or being able to then also come up with some sort of, I see a raised hand, 1 second. Being able to come up with other alternative or creative ways to maybe make prints off of some of the artwork and selling those prints, right? So there's different ways you might have multiple revenue streams. And ideally, we make some of those revenue streams, if we can try to find a way to make them be more consistent, then that can kind of help to even out what are these big dips, the feast or famine that can come with the cash flow woes, is what I call them. Melissa, go for it.
How do you deal with the like the squirrel syndrome with the multiple revenue streams, where you start working so much on the lowest hanging fruit that you kind of, your main goals that will get you further get pushed off because you have all these squirrels that can make you a little bit instead of focusing on the big thing?
That's a great point. And I think it requires prioritizing the different so if I was to take my multiple different revenue streams and I was going to prioritize them, I'm thinking about what of these revenue streams is really making me the biggest bang for my buck. And I don't know if people have heard of this like 80-20 rule, and this is like applied in multiple different ways, but sometimes in business, they'll say that like, it's, I think, how does it go? 20% of what you do, 80% of what you do is, oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to find it and I'll send it to you. But basically what I'm trying to get at is like most of the business that you do, right? It's like gonna be one part of it, And then you're going to be kind of having to make sure that you're not spending a lot of extra time. You might have to reevaluate every once in a while and find, like, I'm spending a lot of money on this revenue stream, but it's not actually bringing in enough money to be able to justify that cost. Maybe I should just hold off, snip that part off, and focus on the parts of my business that are profitable. You know, you want to be thinking about, like, what is the profit margin that you have for something? If it takes a ton of time and money and effort for me to put something out there that's not going to sell for very much, that's not really the best use of my time, when I might be able to then spend a little bit less time, put something out there that I'm going to be able to then maybe sell multiple times, right? There's kind of, you have to weigh those options. And I think, you know, there's no one clear-cut answer to that question, but I think even just the awareness that you have around it for asking that question is a great point, because that's something we all need to be thinking about, you know. And so some businesses have one revenue stream, and that is enough, and they don't need other revenue streams, you know. And so I think businesses can survive but the key is to make sure that you're not spending a lot of time on a time suck activity that's not bringing you any money. You know, so I don't know if that answered your question at all, or if somebody else has anything that they want to chime in. In thinking about this, right, you know, kind of going towards that last question is thinking about building a profitable business, you know. And so I would encourage people to don't get crazy with the revenue streams all at once and be like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this and this and this. You know, it really, sometimes you need to kind of just focus on one thing, get really good at it, get it up and off the ground, and then utilize that traction that you have to then launch something else, you know. Does anybody have any other thoughts or questions so far? All right. Another thing to think about is pricing my products. You know, what factors do I need to keep in mind when I'm pricing my products and services? There are a whole bunch of different pricing strategies to be able to use. And do I want to price lower than my competitors? Do I want to price really high as like a premium price? Because some people really go for a premium price. And if you drop your price down, they're like, I don't have perceived value in that, you know? And so you want to be thinking a lot with the pricing is like tied to your customer. You know, the more you know about your customer, whether they tend to go for the premium thing, you know what I mean? If you know that about your customer, then you can set your price at a point, you know, that is going to resonate with them. You know, if you know about your customer that they like the high value, premium value of things, and then you cut your price really low, they're probably not going to go for that or be interested or think that it's, you know, worth their time or their money. Other things to think about when you're factoring in your pricing is your materials and your costs, not just your costs, like the materials that it costs you to make it, but also those hidden ones that sneak up on us, like the lights over our head that we need to, you know, focus on, and the internet that we use to market our business on a day-to-day basis, right? We have more costs than we think about. And so if we're only factoring if we're only factoring in the cost that it takes to create, you know, this product, and I've only factored in the actual physical products that I needed or materials that I needed to make it, like, then I'm not actually breaking even because I spent more money just to make my business. So I have to charge a little bit more to cover for those other business expenses, not just the ones that it cost me to make it. You also want to factor in your time, you know, because I'm amazed consistently at the amount of people who start businesses and they don't factor in paying themselves. Like, it's incredible. I think we're all here because we're trying to, you know, monetize something, you know, but there are so many people that like have this idea and they're like, yeah, I haven't gotten paid for my business in a year. And it's like, okay, well, that's valiant, but we also, you know, you need a business that's going to pay you, right, for your time at the very least. And so thinking about that, thinking about your costs, your time, you know, and then also kind of what pricing strategies are good to use. And I can talk more about this, you know, if we meet online. I want to make sure that I get to the other couple slides, and I know we only have about 15 minutes left. Okay, tax documentation and filing. This is an area that I really can't stand. I really don't like taxes at all. It stresses me out, and it actually gives me anxiety, so much anxiety. But that being said, it's very, very important to think about it and to create good systems early on, because if you create good systems right from the beginning on how to organize your materials, where you're going to keep your receipts, how you're tracking your business income and your expenses, then it makes this process so much easier and less stressful, right? So my thoughts, you need a system to be able to track it, whether you prefer QuickBooks or an Excel spreadsheet, right? Or printing off your bank statements at the end of the month and highlighting what went in and what went out. You need some sort of system to keep track of what did I make and what did I spend, right? You want to track everything and keep records. So like keep your receipts, you know, and this is where when we think about separating your business and your personal finances, it makes it easier in this process because I can just print out the bank statement for that account where everything came in and out, and then I can categorize things appropriately, you know? So, and then I also recommend trying to find an accountant that you like. If you work with an accountant already, you know, see if they work with small businesses, you know, talk to them and get a little bit of a sense of how you can best prepare. The most important thing is to just, you know, keep adequate records early on. And if you do it, my recommendation is always, and I learned this the very hard way, is to do it a little bit month by month and not waiting until, you know, like 2 weeks before the tax filing date to then try to organize all your stuff, because then it's kind of chaos. Any questions? Okay. All right, and then to wrap up, just a few legal considerations. So one of the things we want to think about is choosing a legal structure that works for the business that we're building, right? A lot of times, you know, we're sole proprietor, we're just, you know, one person, and we don't necessarily need a business structure. Depending on the type of business, going back to that long-term vision, what I'm trying to do, I might want to think about if I'm bringing other people in, sole proprietorship might not necessarily be the best business structure for me. So I might want to look at other business structures. It's a little granular, but there are some informal business structures and more formal business structures. Informal business structures are better for, you know, if you have a smaller customer base, you know, things that start off kind of as a hobby. There's not a whole lot of profit yet. It's kind of low risk, right? A more formal business structure, you're going to want if you have a larger customer base or as you grow to a larger customer base, there's a higher risk of liability. And then you might benefit from specific tax advantages depending on, you know, what your business is. And so some common formal business structures are limited liability companies or LLCs, corporations, and some, these are not all of them, they're just some common ones. More informal business structures are sole proprietorships, general partnerships. If you're not planning on growing past yourself and you plan on just, you know, maintaining your own business, then you could be a sole proprietor and just kind of doing business as. Another legal consideration to think about is intellectual property. You want to make sure there's kind of two things that fall under this bucket, and really it's protecting your own intellectual property and making sure you're not infringing on other people's intellectual property rights. This is really important. Certain companies, corporations, big corporations have entire legal teams that solely exist to scour the market to make sure that people are not infringing on their patents or trademarks or whatever it is, right? We as small business owners, we don't necessarily have that capacity or that know-how to be able to do that. So we can take some common steps to make sure, okay, I'm going to figure out how to protect my own intellectual property, and then also want to make sure that I'm not infringing on other people's intellectual property by using things without permission, photos, images that are, copyrighted. You want to make sure that you don't just go willy-nilly, like to grab a picture from the internet and slap it on a t-shirt and start to sell it. Like, that's not legally correct. You can't do that, right? And this is something that I think trips up people in the beginning, especially early, and I mean like young. I feel like artists, sometimes when you see there's so much at our disposal with the internet, and you can kind of just grab and pick and choose, but you have to be really careful and make sure that you have, stock free images, or that you purchase the rights to use images. And even then, sometimes you have to make sure that you read the fine print, because even if you purchase the rights to something, it might say somewhere in the fine print that you can't use it for a logo, or you can't sell it somewhere. So, you just want to make sure that you're going about protecting your own property, and then also just making sure that you're not putting yourself at harm for being sued because you've unknowingly infringed on somebody else's intellectual property rights. Certain types of intellectual property, there are patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets. This is kind of a little bit about what they protect, and kind of the cost and the term. If you are filing for something like a patent, if you've developed a certain type of technology, that might not last much. That doesn't last longer than 20 years. So you might have to refile if you want to continue to maintain those rights. Thinking about things like, we all know those examples like Popsicle, Xerox, Band-Aid, right? These are commonly used just items that are now, they were originally actual product names that now are so, interchangeable, because and they've been co-opted. But if you look at any other brand other than Band-Aid, it won't say Band-Aid on it, right? Because Band-Aid is trademarked. That name is trademarked. We might say, I'm going to Xerox something, but like, it's not, it's a copy machine. You know what I mean? It's not a Xerox machine, only unless it says Xerox on it, right? So I'm thinking about, that those are all intellectual property issues and there are lots of stories of like intellectual property gone wrong. People who, did not do what they needed to do to take care of their stuff, and then it got kind of used. We think about the Ice Ice Baby like song, where Vanilla Ice had to be like, no, but mine's different. It's dun 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 dun, and so he had to explain how it was different. You can't just like sample people's music, right? And so there's all sorts of things, especially with regards to music and also visual arts, that I think we want to make sure that we have a solid grasp on making sure that we're kind of crossing all of our T's and dotting our I's here. And then kind of the last legal consideration I think is important to think about are the relationships that you will be forming in your business. And so putting some thought into the agreements and the contracts that you might have with your clients, with your customers, with potential partners, with vendors, with employees, in being really clear early on with a formal agreement or contract can help avoid a lot of issues at the end. If something goes wrong and you didn't have a strong written agreement signed, there's not much you can do about that. And especially things like you might not want somebody to take your intellectual property. So you might have to have them sign a specific type of agreement to make sure, called like a non-compete, for example, where they won't take your materials, your process, your methodology and go start their own business, because other than that, what's stopping them from doing that? So, making sure that you put a little bit of thought early on into that. And they don't have to be perfect, right? Obviously, you know, we're not necessarily lawyers by trade. You can pay a lawyer to put them together for you. It's expensive. You know, I think I'm not recommending this, as it's not my like legal advice to you, you know, but do some Google searches on what types of agreements or contracts you might need, get a sense of it, put something together if you felt like you needed that. All right. Now, any thoughts, questions, ideas, aha moments you want to share with the group? I feel like we need some sort of like, if we were in person right now, I'd make us all do some sort of like group chat, like, let's go start a business. Like, woo! But I'm not going to do that to you right now. I'll put my information in the chat as well. You know, this is, oh, real quick, I guess I have another thing or two. I host through Valley Venture Mentors every Tuesday from 5 to 6 on Zoom, the Entrepreneurial Roundtable. It's an open meetup for entrepreneurs and mentors of all stages and all industries, where you can come and you can address all of these types of things that we were learning today. I'm there every Tuesday, and whoever is there, we can kind of address whatever it is, whether they're challenges that you're going through, and kind of work them out. It's a peer-led group. And so I highly recommend come visit me. I'll be there every Tuesday. And that's a great place. Like, as you go through the process of monetizing your passion and turning it into a business, I'd be happy to help support. This is one place that, you know, you can find me. We also have community night. VVM hosts community night on the second Wednesday of the month from 5 to 6. They're currently on Zoom. This upcoming community night is going to be on June 9th from 5 to 6:30. And we're doing this one in partnership with the Springfield City Library, and it's local resources for small business owners. So you'll get to hear presentations from the Mass Small Business Development Center, the Small Business Administration, or the SBA, Common Capital, which is an alternative business lender, SCORE, which is a mentorship organization, and E4All, Entrepreneurship for All, which is a business accelerator program, as well as a pitch contest based out of Holyoke, but also open to the broader Pioneer Valley. They also host accelerator programs and pitch contests, both in English and in Spanish. So I'd love to have you join us. You can register by visiting, is there a registration link? I'll make sure to send all the links. But if you go to this bit.ly link here, the VVM community night, you can sign up for this one and all of our other community nights as well. And then feel free to reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn. If you are on LinkedIn, you know, these are all of the sites for Valley Venture Mentors, so that you can connect with us, sign up for a newsletter so that you can be kind of supported in this journey as you start your own business. I often say that entrepreneurship is like treading water in a violent sea, you know, where you're like, oh God, I'm trying to do all these things and I can't really do them all. But when you think about the fact that organizations like BVM and all of these other organizations exist, it's like a life raft surrounding you, that you just, the half of the battle is realizing that it's even there, that you can reach out to and say, okay, there are places and people that will help me to grow my business, and whether it's just in the idea phase or, you know, I want to grow it and scale it nationally. And so I think all of you coming to this webinar is like a great first step and introduction into this network of resources. And I hope you take advantage of all of the amazing resources that VAM also has to offer for artists. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Well, thank you so much, Hope. We have just a few minutes left. Does anyone, it sounds like, you know, Hope's really encouraging you to reach out to her anytime, but any sort of final questions or thoughts from anyone before we call it an evening?
Just want to say,
well, thank you all so much for coming. Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead.
thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Hope.
Thank you all
That
so
was,
much.
you know, I gotta say, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I've been through a few of these different, like I went and met with someone related to the Mass Small Business Development group when we first were starting this theater company, and I really appreciate Hope's like upbeat, you know, peppy, and also relaxed approach to all this. For me, it's really refreshing, and I'm just really grateful that we can now share this with others. We'll put it on, we have a webinars page on Valley Arts Mentors, artsmentors.org, and we'll be putting this on there. And we have other webinars in the works, one on Latinx arts mentorship in the Valley, and as well as Native American arts mentorship in the Valley, that those are funded through Mass Humanities. I'm just going to do a last shout out because, you know, all these local cultural, there's all these volunteers in every town. Probably a lot of you know the local cultural council grant program. And so I just want to do a quick shout out to the people who are supporting BAM this year. That includes Agawam, Belchertown, Chicopee, Easthampton, Holyoke, Ludlow, Northampton, Southampton, South Hadley, Springfield, and West Springfield. All local agencies supported by the Massachusetts Cultural Council, a state agency. We're pretty lucky. You know, I mean, I haven't lived in a lot of other places, but states and dealt with their arts councils, but I feel like the Mass Cultural Council is a great agency and worth investigating their website. So without further ado, I guess we will wish you all a great evening, and feel free to check out I know some of you are already part of the Early Career Artist Mentorship Program, but if you're not, you know, check it out or just get in touch with us anytime.